Hi, thanks for listening to my marketing assignment. And so, without further ado, I will get it straight into it. The company I chose is a B Corp that operates in Canada. It's called BetterWorldBooks. It sells directly to consumers. And the reason I chose it was because I was interested in it. It's actually used to be a university startup. And so it was started up by Xavier Hagelson, Chris Fuchs, and Jeff Kurtzman. They all were broke college students, and they decided, hey, I have all these textbooks. I want to be able to sell them and get something for them. So they made this company called Better World Books, and they made a lot of money the first day selling their e-textbooks online. And what made them sell their e-textbooks online in the first place was because the university store hardly gave them any money back for good condition textbooks. They bought these textbooks back for pennies on the dollar. And so they're not a university startup anymore. They're quite an international company, in fact. They operate in many countries in Europe, mostly Western countries, Europe, uh, United States, Canada, but also Australia. And there's a few, especially environmental economic forces that really kind of shape this company into what it is, and how it operates, and which is what we're going to get into. And so, without further ado, the first environmental force I want to talk about is the eco-consciousness among consumers. This is a growing trend we see. It started early 90s, I would say, or 90s, 2000s especially, it kicked off, but recycling and carbon neutral are two big hot button topics today that people like to talk about. And this company has taken those ideas and ran with it. They really, they're very responsible when it comes to sustainability. They have a huge recycling program in full swing where they reduce their waste in landfills by recycling old books, but they also, all their shipping is done carbon neutral. And you could say that this gives them added cost because of environmental regulations that not all companies have to abide by, but ones that ship carbon neutral do. However, they feel that this gives them a competitive advantage in the marketplace, especially with more and more people caring about their environmental impact and their purchasing decisions. And so they've kind of championed this idea, and it's a big cornerstone of their company. The next I want to get into is the environmental forces of the company. And so especially, this is probably the biggest force that shapes how this company operates. They're a used bookstore. They don't have the same profit margins as a regular bookstore does. So what that means is people come to them and they're looking for something affordable, and they can offer that, but they're not able to offer a high quality price, I should say, on a book, because it's not high quality, it's used. And so they're not able to use have the same profit margins as a company like Amazon could have. However, this is offset, and what really interesting about this company is it's offset by donations. That's right, you heard me right. This company takes people's donations, their used books, because they've set physical locations in places like libraries and university campuses in the States and around Europe, and they've where people can go to donate these books that they have and don't need anymore. And then if they're good condition, they either sell them or use these books for their charitable endeavors. And so we'll get a bit more into their charity work, but it's pretty extensive. And so people are pretty happy donating books they never read anymore to this company because they do so much charity work, but they are a for-profit company. And so they can use these donations to essentially just sell these books again, which I find to be really interesting. And the company also buys books from people if they're in good condition, but it's a way they offset their cost and make their books more affordable for people. The other thing that really shapes this company is some technological forces. And so what I mean by this is the digital age has really kicked off this company and made it to be very uh, like the interconnectivity of the digital age, where people now can talk to each other and communicate with each other globally, has just exploded this company. It was founded in the early 2000s, and because that is primarily website and online based. I mean, they do have some physical locations and partnerships, but because of the fact that it is primarily online based, they're able to offset their costs, their business costs, because they never started out in a store. You know, they've never done that. It's always been online. And so you're not paying for tons of employees. You're not paying for the rent or utilities of a physical location or the insurance on that physical location. And so a lot of the costs that are associated with how used bookstores operate, you see a local mom and pop shops, they don't have those expenses. And so because of the digital age and because of the interconnectivity and because they can reach such a widespread market and technology has allowed them to do that, this company has severely taken off, and it's kind of propelled the company forward because they've just gone most put most of their resources towards web-based marketing. Um, so now let's talk about some of the consumer behaviors that influence people to buy their products. And there's primarily three. There's more, but these are the three biggest ones in my opinion. One is probably the psychological factors. And so what I mean by this is the motivation. People buy their products because they're affordable, because they're cheap, because it's a used bookstore and people have donated books to them, and so they can sell their books for cheaper. And so this affordability is paramount to people wanting to fulfill a need and to fulfill it cheaply. This will come into play a little bit more when we're talking about segmentation, but the other huge motivation factor of why people like to buy things from Better World Books instead of a place like Amazon is because of their social responsibility and environmental sustainability. Care that the company takes, right? They are a B corporation. And so not only do consumers get a cheap book, but they can also get a book they can feel good about buying because they're supporting a company that has these great initiatives in place. And the second biggest consumer behavior factor here would be reference groups. And so especially in the used bookstore industry, and used items industry, there's a lot of trust based on family and friends. And so students or people or family in particular will talk to each other about the experiences they had online at these websites or these stores, and share their experiences. And so this really shapes Better World Books reputation, and so it's a huge factor in influencing how the company operates, and so leads to them trying to do more charitable work to get a better reputation online, because that's where their sales are. That's how they started out as a company and how they continue to operate. So a huge portion of their references come from reference groups and how well people have received treatment from them. So online forums, review sites, that's all super important to the company. And then the third would be perception. So the convenience of shopping online, the having to go into a store and get hassled by a salesman, or just having to have the awkwardness of buying something cheap and feel like you maybe get the version of the textbook, right? All this stuff shapes the way consumers kind of flood to the company and how they determine if they're going to buy a product from them or not. Now I'm going to talk about segmentation. And the biggest part is not quite geographic. We'll get into it a little later. But geographic is one of the factors that shape this company. And so they've primarily targeted being in urban locations. And yes, they are an online company first, but where they do have physical locations, they're in big urban centers. And this is because that the more population you have, the more donations you can receive, right? And so they've really doubled down, tripled down on big urban locations like Toronto, like the Library of Toronto, like Minneapolis. You know, that's where they've focused more of the most of their physical locations. So now let's talk about the demographic segmentation. So there are two big kickers here that really segment this company demographically, and it's social responsibility and affordability. And that's primarily appealing towards the younger generations of students. They have limited disposable income and have a greater desire for activism and making socially responsible choices than the older generation does. It's not to say that the older generation doesn't do this, but it's a growing trend for sure. This target audience I find is very based, seeing as this company was found on as being a student startup. And I think it's quite smart that they do target younger people because they've really made themselves a steady market, maybe not a high end or high priced market or high profit margins market. They've substituted that out because things are always going to get more expensive. There'll always be students, and there'll always be students trying to trying to make it, trying to break even, trying to get out of school without debt. So I think it's a smart move by BetterWorldBooks. Next up here we have the behavioral and psychographic segmentation. So this company really appeals to those who value social responsibility, particularly around education and the environment. As we've talked, they have a commitment to funding literacy programs, and they literally set off 10% of their sales as a liability to projects in Africa and the UK. And this speaks directly to consumers who prioritize social good in their purchasing decisions. In terms of behavior, BetterWorldBooks really tends to attract loyal customers, or at least has a high potential to do so. People are motivated by both the low price of the company and the ethical stances on issues, which means that BetterWorldBooks looks very good for a consumer standpoint because it tries to balance both of those things. And last but not least, my conclusion, which is BetterWorldBooks has uniquely set themselves up to have loyal customers in a competitive environment by practicing ethical and sustainable business practices. And so they've really niched themselves and wedged themselves into this little standoff where they can compete against Amazon or other big online book forum places, but also have segmented like the younger audience there. But they should focus on more rural locations and not just urban locations. I think rural locations are more community based, and they would receive a lot more donations of books in rural areas than I think per capita in urban areas. And I think that's a missed opportunity there, and I think they should have as many donation boxes as they possibly can. And so that's it. Bye. Sorry, just give me a sec here.